So last week it was surfing these waves, opening up these new opportunities. And now something that's been on my mind is a concept that was first introduced by Dan Mangena. So shout out to Dan Mangena. One of his programs is Money DNA. And so Roxy and I are actually going through it because I first was introduced to Dan through the Maverick community, and then he was nice enough to have me on his podcast. And through there, started to learn that we're really kindred spirits when it comes to this freedom concept. I focus on time, he focuses on money, and they're two sides of the same coin when it comes to freedom. So one of the things that he was talking about that's really been on my mind this week is, with all this new opportunity that's been happening, what's the new identity? What's the new identity? And to look at through the 5 love languages. So what I would love to hear from you, and what I experienced is, for me, I've recently been going through the transition from a coach to a founder of a software company. And that has been a new identity that I've been working on stepping into. So first, I'd like to hear from you of really starting to get the ideas primed. Is, do you feel there's a new identity that you're stepping into? Do you feel like with the opportunity around you right now, is there a big step in a new identity, or is there perhaps a slight difference, but there is a clear difference with a new identity? So just let me know in the chat right now, does there feel like there's a new identity on the brink for you right now? Okay, I've got a yes here. Riley says, not really new, just you evolving into a better person. Yeah, absolutely. And so what I've really been feeling this week, as the comments come here and come in here as well, is, yeah, it's been very helpful for me to have like a name for that new identity, so I can see, sense, and imagine, like, what does that person act like? What does that version of myself act like? How do I carry myself? How do I think? Roy said yes, social transformational leader. Oh, excuse me, social transformation leader. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, even as I read that, I kind of like my spine goes up, and it's like it's a very full, powerful energy, very loving energy too. That's the feeling I get from it. And Jolene shares, yeah, she thinks you're with Riley, more gradual changes than like a completely new identity. Awesome. Yeah, so that's a theme that I'd like to spend some time with here today, is that new identity, those new changes. Christy says a new identity is coming. Just have to shore up loose ends first. Yes, absolutely. That reminds me back to, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, when we did the exercise for closing old doors so that new doors could open. So with me, I've been feeling what I've been focusing on is going from, say, a freedom coach, business owner, to a millionaire founder. And for me, candidly, I've been self-funding the True Freedom software for years. And so there's with startups, there's kind of like the starving artist version, of like, you're working on to get the software until it's viable. It's like a little baby until it finally has its legs. And so with my coaching, with my SEO, that's basically providing for this little software baby. And so what I could feel for myself is this transition to software having its own legs and being self-sustaining. And that's where I feel like I'm in. So what I've been working on is just really opening to that new identity. So what we're going to focus on, the message here today, is a way to accelerate the process for stepping into your new identity. So the first step is having a name for that new identity. Okay. So for me, freedom coach to millionaire founder. That's what I've been focused on. And for me, when I think of the millionaire founder, I'm really not thinking, I'm not thinking of like going on yachts or these different things that I want. I'm just thinking of like, okay, there's the funding coming through to build all these features that I'm just so excited to implement. So whatever it is that that lights you up about it, that's totally okay for you. And to bring this home a step further, to make it practical, I'm going to call back on this card from maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago from Yannick Silver, founder of the Maverick Group. One of his cards is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Cannot pour from an empty cup. Who remembers this from a few weeks ago? Jolene, Riley, I believe you were on. Christy, I believe you might have been on as well. I think so. Yep, Riley says yes. So now we're going to combine these concepts together, because with Dan's philosophy, what I really learned from him is that, excuse me, I did not learn from him on how to make my voice squeak, that's for sure. But is this cup that we have, it needs to be filled up. So how do we fill it up? Well, the interesting thing is, like, that's filling up our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind only responds to what it truly responds to. So the 5 love languages here is speaking to our subconscious, filling up the cup in the way that we understand. So who here is familiar with the 5 love languages, first of all? Anybody hear them before? Head nods, hand raised, comments. Yep. So if, for example, like quality time is my number 1. So Dan's concept is to, okay, if this is your cup, use your number 1 love language to fill up your cup, and to do that based on your new identity. Because if, for example, quality time lights me up, then that's what fills up my cup. And that's what fills up the cup of the new identity. Riley says, yours is physical touch and believe acts of service. Yeah, absolutely. So I find this really fascinating because, affirmations to me have really never like super resonated. If you've ever done affirmations before, and you feel like a part of your mind is just like, oh, you're just lying to yourself. That's how I felt. And I feel like affirmations have helped me in my journey, but it was like kind of a brute force approach. And when I went into the love languages with this lens, I realized, oh, words of affirmation are the bottom of my list. So it makes sense that that's not going to fill up my cup. Like looking in the mirror and telling myself who I want to be or who affirming, it just doesn't, it's okay. And that's why if there's like friends and family or colleagues, like if they give me words of affirmation, like it's nice, but it's not like, I'd rather us have quality time together. So Jolene says, yes, last I checked, 4 were pretty equal, except gift giving. Okay. Yeah, so this is a free test, and I've been finding this is just like a great accelerator. Because if you know your top 1 or top 2, then you can fill up your cup with that one. And so, for example, what I've been doing, just candidly, is taking myself out to dinner, or take myself out to breakfast, and being like, okay, I'm gonna have bro time, like with my new identity. And the wild thing is, it's just like, I feel like I've been just filling up my cup. Like, it was literally, I did it on Sunday, and then I did it this morning, and I felt like an old grandpa. I felt like an old grandpa coming to life. Like, it was just like, I like felt the energy pouring up. I'm like, whoa, man, I haven't moved like this in years. Like a old grandpa hearing his favorite song, and then he starts hoeing down, doing the dance. Like, that's how I felt, because I was giving quality time to filling up my cup, to my new identity. And I I realized I'm like, okay, if I was having a session or meeting a millionaire founder as a friend, you know, let's go somewhere cool. Let's dress up a little bit, let's have fun. So this message of the week is what I've really been finding is that then, of course, when we fill our cup up, we're overflowing and abundant, and the energy that we bring to everything is at a whole new level, and things flow much more. So to bring this all home for today, because what we'll do is we'll do a subconscious clearing here so that it's easier and easier to fill up your cup, be in flow state with your work. So before we go in that, I'd like to do an example of each. So if yours is quality time, spend quality time with your new identity, whatever that new identity would want to do. If yours is words of affirmation, speak loving words to your new identity as if you were speaking loving words to a friend. And that's what it's for me, that's been a key piece, because if I just speak it to myself, that's one thing, or if I just do it for myself, it's one thing. But if I treat it like, oh, this is a really good friend I have, what would I do? Like, I noticed that for myself is like, it was easy for me to schedule over like the time that I had in my calendar for myself. And I had this epiphany where I was like, man, if I had scheduled that with a friend, I'm not going to just schedule over our time together. So I started putting in my calendar of like Sebastian session. Like if I was having a session with a person named Sebastian, like I'm not going to schedule it, And it's like, and then I have a little tagline, fill up your cup. So that's words of affirmation. And let's go to acts of service. So from what I understand about acts of service, it's really doing something for yourself or for a friend or a loved one, doing something for a loved one that lightens the load, that you can feel the intention behind it. You can feel like, this person did this for me to, help me out, help things go easier, make it so I don't have to carry everything myself. And let's see here, who's got acts of service as top number one or top two? Riley's got it in top two, it looks like. Roxanne does as well. Right, so that's my invite for you, is to try it out, see what it feels like, doing that thing for yourself just like you would do for a loved one. Okay, and then receiving gifts. So what I understand about receiving gifts, because this isn't a top one for me, but it's about the intention, the thought behind the gift of somebody thinking, wow, okay, like this is what this person's going to like, this is what's going to light them up, all that love and energy into it. Riley says, acts of service and physical touch go hand in hand. I love being shown, I love versus being told. Actions speak louder than words. Perfect. So with your new identity, do that, share that love with your new identity in that way. And this is one of the funny things I really appreciate by Dan is Dan shares that like, if we don't do this like we would want to receive love from a loved one, then our subconscious mind isn't going to be on board. Our subconscious mind is like, hey, actions speak louder than words, bro. Like, where's the love? And that new identity doesn't click in. That it's like there's a lid on filling up our cup. And then we start feeling more like the weary warrior more and more. Okay? So receiving gifts, how can you give yourself a gift? And it's not about the money amount, it's about the thought and energy behind it. And then physical touch. Physical touch. So how can you fill up your cup by giving your new identity the experience, the tactile experience? Maybe it's clothes, maybe it's stone, maybe it's feeling things out in nature. Whatever that experience is of getting out of the head and into actually feeling it. And physical touch is my top two, I'd say. So yeah, when I can feel it and it's just out of here, I can be out of my head, feel the energy come through. Like the old man, I was like, wow, these creaky old bones are starting to move again. Like there's grease and lube starting to come through. It's almost like being a rusty old robot. So the more we do this, the more we open to our creativity. And the more we open to our creativity, the more efficient we become where we can accomplish more in less time. And so with that being said, we're going to go into our subconscious clearing here. Just make it smoother and smoother and smoother to fill up our cups, because there's certain fears that'll come up, or certain doubts, or certain resistance that comes up. For me, it sounded like, I guess in the early days, it's felt like, this isn't that important. Maybe if I just do these other items on my to-do list, then I'll get to that later. But that's like putting our identity, that's like putting our friend on the back burner. Imagine a friend that's like, hey, you want to hang out? And you're like, well, tomorrow. Hey, you want to hang out? Tomorrow, next week, and always getting pushed off. Like, what's the quality of that friendship going to be like? And that's really what I feel is like with our new identity. So resistance that comes up that we'll clear here specifically for each of us is resistance to prioritize this, which I feel like it only takes a few times before, like it took me twice and I'm like, okay, I feel it. I really feel it. So resistance to prioritize, resistance to even give ourselves the gift. I think a lot of us can resonate with giving, and never taking time for ourselves. Resistance of it maybe feeling selfish, or like we're taking away from others, when in fact, really, the more we fill up, the more we have given to others. So before we go into this, let me know if there's any other resistance, fears, or doubts that come up for you on this concept of filling up your cup, filling up the cup of your new identity in the love language that your subconscious mind likes to hear it in.